like I remember growing up, you used to save, and buy, maybe a CD every week, and you knew like it was that real CD, like, and you might have had some others that you were going to listen to until you had enough money to buy the next one. And I think it made you deep dive into, into that record, into that artist. You used to listen to it in the order that it was recorded, and you used to have a familiarity with the producers, and especially with sleeve notes and stuff like that. And while you wouldn't swap that out for, for anything with what you get on Spotify or Tidal, whatever your preferred digital supplier of music is, because as you said, you've got so much um, choice now, but it has changed about how we consume music. And I'm not sort of saying it's a good or a bad thing, but the experience seems slightly more, consumery in feel, and slightly less like interaction with the artist. And like I know some of the artists, there was like a jazz musician, I can't remember her name, but she refused to go on Spotify, and she released her material through it's kind of a specialized, distributor, and they gave a lot of different collateral with the album and the background. And like I did buy her last album through that source, but it just wasn't the same thing, and it would be very hard to go back to it. And you have the same thing with bookshops as well. There's like almost like a psychology of bookshops, and I think some people have been surprised that the bookshop hasn't been obliterated yet. But you know, to me, it's about some type of engagement when you're in the shop, and it's not as extreme with digital music and say reading books on a Kindle. A lot of people still read, the old-fashioned paperbacks. But again, the little dynamic has changed. The like, what
Yeah.
do you see like in the art world, say with music and art and books, how people interact because of digitalization and greater access?
That's such a great question. It's something I think about a lot actually. Both my parents are artists. My dad was a traveling jazz musician. My mom is a painter. And it's something I think about a lot and talk with them a lot about as well. And I think one thing that's happened, which I think is a little bit unfortunate, is when it ceases to be a physical good, let's say in the case of a music CD, when it goes to the digital domain, we tend to take it for granted, I think, a little bit more. So you think less about the music experience. You're a little bit less choosy about the music that you listen to. When everything is at your fingertips, when everything is programmatic, and you can pick any song that's ever been written and recorded to listen to at any given moment, we have the huge weight of the counterfactual, which weighs in on that experience. So let's say we go to our Spotify account and we listen to I don't know, we listen to the Beatles and we enjoy the Beatles,
Mm.
and then a thought pops into my head. Well, why don't I listen to Led Zeppelin? I like this Led Zeppelin song. Why don't I listen to Led Zeppelin? You switch to Led Zeppelin, and then as you listen to Led Zeppelin, well, there's so many great bands out there. There's Radiohead, there's Miles Davis, and you can listen to all of that at the touch of a button. And so as you're listening to the music, you also have the weight of every other music, every other piece of music sort of weighing in on that experience, and how happier could a piece of music make you in that moment. And it's dynamic, which I think robs us of the full experience because we're not as fully committed to it. In the
Yeah.
same way that as we move to sort of online dating, for example, yes, I'm happy with this person that I'm seeing from on the side, but could I be a little bit happier with this person? Maybe I'll just keep swiping until I find this person, and then it's an endless sort of cycle of being a little bit dissatisfied and wondering if there's something that's going to make me a little bit happier. And it's really the immediacy and the immediate gratification of these platforms that can deliver this to us so effortlessly, that I think produces this kind of dissatisfaction with the immediate experience. There
Yeah.
was a great book that was written earlier this year, about 6 months ago. This is Chuck Klosterman. He wrote a book on the 90s, and that's the title of it, The 90s. And it's about the 90s, the decade, and really the zeitgeist of that era. And one thing he talks about a lot is this transformation of music. And as we're moving from physical to digital, and it's something that we didn't live through it, it's almost impossible to explain to someone who, in this younger generation, who didn't grow up with physical CDs. I mean, they think that music is just this sort of ephemeral, transitory system that we can just always have, but that wasn't always the case. And I think one big shift that's taken place there is, I think one positive that's taken place there is we can afford to be a little bit more diverse in our music selection. So, when we were beholden to just, physical records, it's $15 for a CD of, 13 tracks. You really have to make a good financial decision, investment essentially. You know, and you had to sort of just kind of, you were a little bit, loss averse. You wanted to satisfy, so you wanted to make a good decision you'd be happy with. And, that was your choice. And now, on Spotify, you can check out this music and this music, and you can do, hip hop versus, EDM versus classical music, and you can have all of it. So I think one positive is that we're able to explore different art, different genre, and we're less pigeonholed in terms of how we identify with music. But then on the other side, as we talked about, it does, I think, the huge counterfactual of having the entire corpus of musical history at the touch of a button makes us a little bit dissatisfied with the current experience that we're having.